have you now.
You're fulfilling your destiny.
Show me again the power of the darkness.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll. D20radio.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Death Troopers and Rogue One operatives, to the Knights of Ren, episode 113. With me this week, we have Jay. Thank you for joining us, sir.
No problem.
We also have lost Rick. Lord Kylo has summoned him to work on some radar technician stuff, so we won't be seeing him for a couple hours. So it's just going to be me and Jay. And this week, we're going to be talking about a deck that you've constructed and have done some pretty extensive playtesting with. So why don't you give us the skinny on, what it is, and, how did you get to this deck?
Yeah, so as many of you know, I've mostly been focusing on yellow and also with a dash of red. And so I've been trying a lot of cool yellow stuff, and I made early on a Dooku Jabba deck trying to explore some of the control aspects of the game and really hammering heavy on focus. And then someone casually just made the remark that Dooku and Phasma had the same die. It's just Dooku you had to pay a resource to discard, and Phasma you didn't. And they're different colors and they have different abilities, so they're not 100% swappable. But it led me to test Phasma in a more controlling-ish role, and I made this kind of funny red-yellow deck that tried to use Flamethrower, because even though Phasma is a ranged character, the focus lets you turn Flamethrower to the side you want, and there's no modified sides on it. And so I had limited success. It was kind of a goofy deck that somewhat relied on cunning and other little tricks, but it didn't really have a lot of focus to it, pun intended. And something that I've learned in my early testing was I invested too much into focus. I really liked the side a lot, but there are a lot of turn ones where I could maybe do 2 damage between Phasma and Jabba, sometimes 4, maybe if I had an upgrade, but a lot of decks were coming out extremely explosively. So I messed with Django, I messed with adding some troopers to the list, and then for the longest time, early on in my checking the game out, I looked at a list that was Trooper, Veers, Elite Politique, and I thought this deck was really cool. It hit extremely hard. That's a ton of damage sides. Politique has his 1 ranged and his +2 modified, and then a little bit of focus, and using cards like aim and some really cool supports, you could really hit like a truck. But the deck was a little frail. Each of these guys has less than 10 health, and I was like, man, that's a cool idea, and I wish I could make something work like that, but I'm just not sold. And so I was running my Jabba Phasma version for the longest time, and then I saw someone at a local event running Stormtrooper, Phasma, Elite Politique, and I had wiped that possible combination from my mind because I didn't realize that the point costs match on 1 die Phasma and 1 die Veers, and when I ever thought of that combination, I always just imagined Veers. So when Phasma came into the equation, I was like, holy crud, I get to use Guardian. I still get her sweet focus side. She has 11 health. This is exactly what I want. So I came up with a deck using that group, and after, I don't know, we're on version 8 after doing a bunch of revisions, talking to other players, learning a lot from testing. I am extremely excited to sort of go into this pretty cool. It's kind of an aggro list, but it also has some of the best control and defense in the game. So one of the things we're going to be exploring is just what kind of deck is this? We kind of want you guys to help us out, and we have a fun little contest at the end.
Yes, I'm very excited. We're going to have a name this deck contest, and whoever's name we pick gets a prize, and we'll talk about that later in the show. But let's go over the character design. So you've got First Order Trooper, Captain Phasma, and Elite Politique. So since you've built this and you've tested and gone through, tabletop simulator and real life playtesting, what led to that design? Especially, my biggest question is, have you seen that 4 dice lists are superior to, say, 3 dice lists? Because I know a lot of people on forums and Facebook have been talking about, mostly, is it better to have 3 powerful dice? Is it better to have 4 dice because you have more options? And I'd love to hear your take on that discussion.
Yeah, so in my local group, most people run 3 character lists and a couple of Vader Raiders, but traditionally I see a lot of 3 die lists one way or another, and I just had a very, very hard time letting go of 4 dice at the cost of adding a 3rd character. So I was running arguably smaller health pool lists that were slightly easier to disrupt based on the tempo of the game. I play against a lot of heroes and I eat a lot of negotiations. So the few times that I tested 3 dice list, I was just getting my dice eaten, and I just felt like one more die really mattered. But I also was noticing that sometimes I wasn't winning in the health race. And so I was wishing, I was like, man, I just wish there was a 3 character deck that had 4 dice. That would be, the dream. And then as this deck came to be, you get to sit at a fairly healthy 26 health. Stormtrooper has 7, Phasma has 11, Balatik has 8. You get the advantages of Guardian. Stormtrooper has 3 damage sides. 1 you have to pay for, but if you need to start a range chain, as long as you're getting 4 or more damage out of it, that's definitely worth 1 resource. Phasma brings 1 ranged, 2 ranged, and a focus, and then Balatik again brings 1 range, modified 2 ranged, focus, and so you get 3 potential focus die options. Every character can potentially hit for 2, so you have so anything you modify can potentially deal 2 damage. So this deck, has I've rolled it. I've rolled 8 damage turn 1s after they've played a decent equipment and they can't afford their good removal early on into the game. And yeah, I've done 6 to 10 based on whatever equipment I drop first. I really love cards like DH-17 Pistol. It costs 1 and 2 of their sides adds 2 damage. You may have to spend the resource that you saved, but again, this deck can be very explosive. So let's get into the upgrades first. So as mentioned, I have DH-17. That bad boy does a lot for a single cost. I love playing that early on. It lets me keep resources ready for some defensive options, or if I have to pay to shoot. This deck also has F-11D blaster rifle, the Stormtrooper rifle, the villain one. This card has 4 damage sides. 4! Its special is still very super good, even if you don't get to decide where it goes. I also run Jetpack, which is still probably my favorite card. It nastily has +2 and +3, and its special comes up fairly often, being relevant. It eats a melee die. So obviously if you're playing against melee characters, you can just pick off a melee die, or some dice that they use, stuff like Promotion or On the Hunt, that has a melee side, and sometimes you can chew that side off. I've disrupted force trainings, I've disrupted all kinds of cool stuff using the jetpack, and also the jetpack can roll 2 shields. So it's really good at keeping specifically Bala alive, but also you can spread shields to your Stormtrooper and let him guardian things away. I mentioned a Promotion. If I run red, I'm starting to really prefer Promotion over Datapad. In my opinion, it has more relevant sides. Granted, Datapad Cunning Specials is a combo that is incredibly good, but I'll get a little ahead of myself. This deck doesn't run Cunning, which I think makes Datapad a poor choice, so I like to rely on Promotion. It has a plus damage side, it has focus, it makes money. It's just extremely versatile and useful, and drawing the card helps. One thing that I tend to do a lot with this deck is I get a little discard crazy and try to turn my dice, because again, nearly every single die that I put in this deck, except right now, promotion, deals 2. So odds are good that if I can flip a character die into a focus or into range damage and start a chain, my rerolls tend to be very good, and most of my dice have 3 damage sides or lead to damage sides. So discarding in this deck is very, very effective, and I'll even discard some of my better defensive cards early to try and take out a character or someone. Anything to add right now, Sudi, as we move on?
Okay, so here's a question. You were mentioning that most of the dice from these cards in your upgrades section promote heavy damage, mostly 2. Are you looking at cards for their consistency when you put them in the deck, or are you mathematically trying to put cards that make your deck deal more damage? Like, this is more of a deck building question, but is this kind of like, is your thought process towards consistency, or is it towards like bursty damage?
My goal with this deck was to A, be efficient, B, be cheaply costed, and C, as efficient damage as I can dish out. And, goals with playing with Balatik are trying to get upgrades on Balatik that help him, do the things he does. And then also have some cards that if things don't go as planned and I can't manage to keep them alive, things that also make Phasma scary, because one way or another they'll either try to knock Phasma out because she's the largest target, or they'll usually try to take out Balatik because he's the heavy hitter. But sometimes I try to put everything on Phasma, and then if you spend all your resources on Balatik, Phasma just gets to chew your face off. So one of the other advantages I like about this deck is it's what I would call a 2-threat deck, where it doesn't completely dissolve if Balatik dies. It's harder, but I've set this up so that I'm trying to put like F11s on Balatik. Also, another card that's in here, to no one's surprise, Holdout Blasters. I actually don't overall love this card. To me, it's a really expensive F11. I don't like that it's gray. I get that it goes in everything, but for like specific synergies and things that I'm trying to do, it's in there out of necessity. It does let me do some pretty silly plays. And I mean, obviously the like start a turn Holdout Blaster rollout is a classic and brutal play, so I'm not going to sit here and call the card bad. But after that, so we also have IQA, which is the sort of expensive luxury card in my deck, as I refer to it as. It costs 3, and before we go on, like, I don't have any resource generation in this deck. I let natural rolls and I let focus take care of that for me, and also the ability to overwrite. I've really fallen in love with IQA. It's got a 2 base damage side, not modified. It's got a +3, just like Jetpack, and it's got a special side that hits for 2, just like a lightsaber. So to me, it's a 3-cost Jetpack lightsaber, but I think the value really sings with its base 2-hit, being able to start range chains, or you can focus into a +3 the same way you would do a Jetpack. One problem you sometimes run into is like Jetpack can't stand on its own, IQA can. So I've really, really fallen in love with the card, and I really think it's worth the 3. I actually am starting to feel that lightsaber isn't worth the 3, but we're not really talking about blue today. But IQA is my killer app, so to speak. And then I'm going to talk about one of the first flex slots in the deck. So far, everything I've mentioned has been 2-ofs. This deck has 4 1-ofs. All of these are in like a testing scenario and may become a 2-of. I'm trying to decide what ratio I want on some of these cards. But the first one we're going to talk about is Commanding Presence. Originally, I had 2 of those in this deck because I own 2 of them, and it's a pretty sweet card. It offers a truckload of focus. It flips, it has the really powerful special side, which you can use against your opponent's red dice, and you can beef out a focus side, a money side, a damage side. It does a lot of cool things. The problem is it's also expensive, and the benefits you get for it aren't as immediate. And the issues that I ran into where it can only be played on Phasma, I mean, you can put it on the Trooper, but who's going to do that? So it can only be played on Phasma, and I've ran into scenarios where the game has gone long and it's just been Phasma, and when she only has 1 die herself, if they disrupt that die, Commanding Presence doesn't have enough legs on its own. So I like having 1 in the deck to sort of sort of splash. And if I've played a lot of red upgrades, then obviously its stock goes way up. But I'm really trying to get like jetpacks out there, and it doesn't do anything with jetpacks. Well, it can focus, but it's less synergistic. Let me put it that way. It also doesn't synergize with Bala as well outside of the focus. So it doesn't fit as well as I'd like to, is the point that I'm trying to make. I still think it's a great card. But one thing I can say right now, and the thing that I love about this deck, is Captain Phasma and possibly one Commanding Presence are the only legendaries you run in this deck. So we can argumentatively call this a budget or very slight budget deck. And you can run this the Veers version. It doesn't require Phasma. I just think Phasma keeps you alive better, but you could definitely, everything I've said so far, you could make this deck running Phasma Trooper Bala, or Trooper Veers Bala, or you could even do the Django Veers or Django Trooper. Like, they all can use this list fairly well.
And something that's really nice about the quote unquote budgeting is that both Commanding Presence and Phasma are not considered powerful, so their singles cost is not excessively prohibitive. And the only thing we're making that statement on is that Vader is a $40 card pretty much across the market. So he's the most expensive legendary and the most expensive card. So then anything that's considered powerful is in the like $30-$40 range. I believe Phasma is floating in the 20s, and I believe Commanding Presence is in the $12 to $15 range. So I mean, comparatively to any other card game, that is really, really, really player friendly. And I like Commanding Presence. I'm having the same problem you are, is I'm running decks with Phasma and Troopers, and I'll put Commanding Presence on a character, Phasma or a Trooper, and like you said, without the damage sides, it's kind of weird because the focus is great, but sometimes you really want to see a damage symbol, and Commanding Presence only enhances a damage symbol you have on the field, which means players are more likely to pull off your base die, and then you can't resolve modified die with Commanding Presence, and so you're sitting on a special you can't use, or you have a focus that will turn something into significantly less damage than you really wanted in the first place. So I like Commanding Presence. I feel like it's definitely great for red aggro, but I agree, like, I used to run 2 of, now I'm kind of like 1 and then some cards to help support it. I'm really, really interested to talk about the events in your deck, because your upgrades are very aggressive. Lots of damage, very efficient costing, and they synergize very well with your die faces. And then your events are very unique, and I want to hear why you picked what you picked.
Moving on to the events. So what you're trying to do with this deck is keep Politic alive. The better you are at doing that, the more likely his special can go off, and the more you're going to tear the field apart. So I'm running the best defense, He Doesn't Like You, Electroshock, Disarm, and Flank, all as like my heavy defense options. The best defense is arguably one of my favorite cards in the whole game. You get to pick away 2 of their dice. If they just played a sweet upgrade, they just played Crime Lord, they just played Kylo Saber, they just played Cunning, like Mind Probe, whatever. You can take that. You can take one of their character dice. Like, the cost of 3 health is not much, especially when you're piling damage onto your Stormtrooper anyway. Or I often throw the damage onto Phasma. She's sitting on a healthy 11, so taking one of these only puts her to 8, which is still pretty solid. Again, this deck has some shield generation, so sometimes even it doesn't even hit her that hard. But it's nice having 2 targets for this to be extra flexible with how you want to spend the damage. He Doesn't Like You, 1-for-1 trade a die. You will often roll out. You'll often have an extra die. You'll roll a miss. You'll roll a shield side or something that's just not helpful, and you can just take away whatever their really strong card is. The only thing to remember is you have to roll out. You have to have dice in play before it's going to do anything, but that's not the hardest. He Doesn't Like You, just very good spot removal, very good in response, and it doesn't cost anything. Electroshock, Rick hilariously did the math, and there's only like 20 die faces in the whole game this doesn't hit. So just one of the most versatile removal cards in the game. It hits so many things. The only thing you have to remember is Bala has to be alive. Flank, it's a 3-character deck. Oftentimes, you'll outnumber them. And even, I've had some really sweet plays where Balatik has readied after an enemy has died, and we were all tapped out, but now that he's readied, now I can use Flank, because both of their guys are exhausted and my guy isn't, so it combos with the deck. And that's come up more than once, so a surprise like late turn Flank can be really good at, picking off a very specific die. And then a card that I've been advocating a lot about for a long time, I always run 2 of this card. I honestly think anyone running yellow, hero or villain, needs to be playing this card, and it's Disarm. Disarm, it's so synergistic with, if you roll an errant modified side, you don't have anything to add it onto, you can knock off one of their redeploys. You can knock off a jetpack. You can, knock off a little blaster or race staff. If you use the +3 on the IQA or the jetpack, you can hit lightsabers, you can hit thermal detonators. Just the amount of reach that Disarm gives you so many times, it's way worth weakening them and removing a die from them at the cost of 1 to 2 to 3 damage. It hits Holocron. It hits Holocron so hard. Yeah, Disarm is just like it. I love that card. I think everyone should be using it more.
Something I wanted to say about Disarm, and this comes from experience with Magic and other CCGs. So there's multiple different places where things are in the game. So for example, you have a deck, you have cards in your hand, cards in your discard pile, cards, in the deck. You have dice in the pool, dice on your cards, places like that. When we're talking about Disarm, a really powerful thing about Disarm is you remove one of your dice showing damage, melee or ranged, which could be modified or base, and you get to discard a weapon or equipment from play that costs equal to or less than the value of the die you sacrificed. So a reason why this card is extremely powerful is because there's not a lot of game mechanics right now that allow you to pull weapons or equipment from your discard pile and put them back into your hand. Very, very few. I think we're looking at 1 battlefield and I believe 1 yellow event card that can get you back whatever you lost. So essentially, this is a strong removal card, and generally your dice that you choose, one of whatever you pick out, that's going to deal way more hurt to your opponent than the 1 die you just decided to remove for that single round. So when you're looking at Disarming, you're thinking, why would I sacrifice a die to get rid of a card? Well, you're sacrificing a die in that round 1 time to get rid of a card that will cost the opponent way more resources and way more actions and hard work to get that card back into their hand, and then they have to try and play it a second time. So it gives you action economy, it gives you game advantage, it helps your tempo keep flowing, and it hurts your opponent on all levels. And so Disarm is a fantastic card for more than just the face value of what it provides you.
Also, pro tip for using Disarm. Always use Disarm after your opponent has rolled out the character with the equipment that you're trying to hit. Unless you fear that the die that you're going to use to disarm is going to go away before you get the opportunity. But if they've spent the resources and they've rolled out and then you knock off the equipment, the die leaves the pool. And sometimes if you can hang on long enough, they'll spend cards or focuses to fix the die. I've had it used against me where I've used my focuses to, flip my jetpacks to the side that I want, and then I lose the jetpack. It's really rough, and it's one of the stronger use cases of Disarm. It's really good. So the other definite 2 of in the event slot is Tactical Mastery. I know everybody really loves All In, and a lot of people are probably thinking, like, isn't that kind of this card possibly better? They are not the same card by a lot. Tactical Mastery lets you play cards, lets you activate characters lets you, it kind of lets you do things differently instead of just only manipulating your dice. And also for all in, you have to have all your dice in play in order for it to be completely relevant. I do think all in would be fine in this deck. I don't run it. But I've just made a lot of really gross plays using tactical mastery, slapping, equipment down, rolling, and then shooting, when they assumed they were going to get to activate or do something, especially when you have like focus dice sitting on the table. You can focus and then fire and blow them away. Tactical Mastery is a very fitting name for a very versatile card. There's still some cards I haven't mentioned yet that also synergize with it, so keep them in mind. And I'm going to finish off the list now, but once we're all the way through, I'll explain just some of the neat combos and things to remember. So the last 3 event slots are all one-ofs. These are all in the flex category once again. I have 1 copy of Armed to the Teeth. I really, really enjoy this card in this deck because sometimes you're ahead enough that you can spend an upgrade or 2 on Bala and just pick off a character, reset him. Even though you lose the dice from the equipment that you've thrown, getting that kill, getting him ready again is often, to me, it's been worth the loss of what you spent on the upgrades. Being able to kill unexpectedly, late game, having 3 damage for nothing if you've got a fully maxed out Bala. Personally, I've run into enough instances where I've wanted this card. It used to be a 2 of. Drawing 2 is obviously terrible, so it got demoted to a 1 of, but I am reluctant to remove the card from the deck because even though it doesn't do anything when Ball is dead, you have a free discard. This reroll, this deck rerolls constantly. When it's been good, it's been very, very good. Next we have Leadership. Leadership was a recent addition. Again, it can get Bala rolling more and more. Early on, I tend to upgrade Bala more than Phasma, so at times at most she'll have a promotion on her, and if Bala's rocking 2 upgrades, paying 1 resource and exhausting Phasma, you can again get that potential possible 8 damage out of Bala or more flying at your opponent. So I haven't tested the card too much yet. It's a more recent addition, but I can see it being strong. I don't think it deserves 2 copies in the deck though, because you really want to be in like the middle position of the game. It's probably not going to be good enough early. So drawing it early and sitting on it, I'd rather probably have a different card. And then lastly, this is actually an addition I've made after the event yesterday, which I took our small local with this deck. I'm going to add an Endless Ranks, and I know that I said your deck doesn't generate extra resources, so how are you going to pay for this card? The longest games that I've gone into, it usually comes down to Phasma and whatever character I've have left alive for my opponent. I almost always try to burn down their smallest guy and then their largest if it's a 3 list, or if it's a 2 list, I always murder your larger guy first. So it's usually Phasma, who's my second string, versus whatever your deck's second string is. And sometimes like I'm sitting on money because I can't equip her with anything new. So this money doesn't do anything. I'm just re-rolling. I think for the long game, Endless Ranks, bringing back the Trooper, getting Guardian back online is going to push this deck ahead, and as sort of a niche strategy. Sometimes you'll get there. Sometimes you can also just, again, spend all your focus and turn all your die sides to money. If you use Commanding Presence is really, really good at making money. It's really, really good at making money. So again, using all of that, then you have a new target for Commanding Presence to get better with the Trooper. So again, inside synergy. It's tough. It's not easy playing Endless Ranks, but I think 1 belongs in this deck for the late game in case something happens to Bala. So then lastly, there's 1 card that has been mentioned. There's only 1 support in this deck, and of course, to no one's surprise, it's Backup Muscle. That card alone kills characters, wins games. It's one of the best cards there is. And then Battlefield. Battlefield's interesting. For the longest time, I was running Imperial Armory, but that's when the curve was a little higher, and that was how I was trying to cheat in earlier IQAs or earlier commanding presences, or like maybe play a free DH-17, but nowadays I just play it anyway. So Armory actually hasn't been performing as well for me as I'd want, because when I use a Battlefield, if I take it, I want to use it. I want it to benefit me every time I claim it. It's really frustrating when you just take a Battlefield that you brought to the table and you're not getting anything out of it. So I am switching to, and this might change, and if you have feelings for different Battlefields, Battlefield is a personal playstyle decision, but I'm jumping to Separatist based on Mustafar for the random unpreventable damage. It just pushes me ahead harder. If they claim it, I can throw the damage on Phasma and be completely fine with it. It's not hitting Bala. It's not slowing me down. It's not giving my opponent any direct advantage, but it's putting them within like the critical range of me to blow them out. It's closer and closer every time I claim it. And late game, when you just need a little bit of damage left, like the ever so potent like claim to kill, such a good steal. I really love Separatist base, so that's the Battlefield I've chosen.
So I want to talk about some of the cards and their weak points and how you get over the weaknesses of the deck when you're playing. Specifically, so we're looking at Electroshock, Arm to the Teeth. These cards require you to essentially have a yellow character. Electroshock, you have to spot a yellow character. Arm to the Teeth, you have to strip off your upgrades from a yellow character. Leadership, you have to exhaust one of your unique red characters, so Phasma is the only target. Commanding Presence has to be on a red character. When you're playing these cards, and say you're at a point where, like for Electroshock or Arm to the Teeth, and Bala is gone, what are you doing in order to keep your characters alive so these cards are functional as long as possible?
Right. So the impetus of this deck has been keep Bala breathing. So when the deck is, playing as it's supposed to, and you're picking away critical cards with the Guardian of Stormtrooper, again, using flank, I swear the earlier you draw the best defense, like the faster this deck wins, the quicker you just take your opponent out of the turn. You just there's so many ways for you to remove whatever it is their deck's trying to do well often enough to give you the lead, and then you can kill at least one of their characters is how generally this plays. I know I'm talking kind of absolutist, which is usually not my way. My success rate with this deck has been very, very high. Again, the strengths that it brings are it punishes 3-character decks fairly well because, I bring a lot of damage to the table, and after 1 or 2 upgrades, I can knock out, your Rebel Trooper or your Admiral Akbar or your hired gun who doesn't have the lowest health. But whoever you're chudding out there, if you can get Balatik to resolve, he usually adds 4-6 more damage back into the round, depending on how you've used and manipulated your dice, what upgrades he has. So then even if you squeeze out 3 more damage off of a reactivation, that's still edging you closer and closer to your win con. Your question was, what does this deck do when you lose Bala? Those are the situations where things get rough. I've still won games like that. I've had turn 2, I just didn't draw my disruption and my opponent rolled 9 and Bala just isn't joining us for the rest of this adventure, and I still turned it around, mitigating dice, strongly between Trooper and Phasma. Sometimes if you're trying to be really lucky and really cute, you can let them hit Bala a little and disperse their damage and then go heavy on defense. I've tried that. I've had middling results, but sometimes also your opponent sometimes just goes for Phasma, which is great because you've thrown, sometimes I try to draw heat to her again by giving her the upgrades instead of Bala and seeing if they're afraid of, a 2 dice Bala now. But sometimes those 2 dice are all you need. Basically, you're kind of playing a shell game. You're trying to move the goalpost. You have so many good defensive options. And Guardian just picking away the dice that they want. You have to know exactly what dice are threatening you the most. I mean, I've confused my opponents by they've rolled out and I've removed their misses because the miss die is still scarier to me than what they could have potentially re-rolled into versus what they have on the table. So being able to make decisions like that, knowing what to best defense, flank, and electroshock away will carry you further and keep you alive longer. That's kind of a play skill you need to learn and to adapt. Like, try to remember, even if your opponent does roll, the god roll that turn, or like spends their hand to re-roll a bunch of times, do the math in your head. Can they actually kill Bala this turn? If they can't, you don't have to worry as much, and you can put some of your own pressure if that leads to maybe killing a guy and getting some more dice off the table or something. These are just some of the decisions that come along with experience in playing this deck.
One of the biggest questions I want to ask is, when you start the game, you have the option to mulligan away as many cards as you want, reshuffle your deck, and then draw back up to 5 cards. So in most of these decks, there are certain combos you really want to see and certain combos you really don't. So if someone were to take this deck list and play it, what are some of the cards you really want to see in that opening hand? And what are some of the cards, like if you were to draw them, you want to get rid of back into the deck for later, mid-game or late game?
You definitely want an upgrade. You want to try and drop an upgrade a turn, unless you're like losing the race on upgrades, and then you want more defensive cards. But I always want a DH17. That's my favorite turn 1 play. It gives me the flexibility of being able to put an upgrade onto the table and roll Bala out, but still have a resource ready to play a defensive card. Sort of control the game from there. I'm never upset with an F11. Again, 4 damage sides, 4. I'll say it again, 4. It's Kylo's lightsaber is a gun. Doesn't hit quite as hard, but it's still, that card is just so good. And as redeploy, IQA, I toss that back. That needs to be, upgraded into, or if I'm a little flush on money, but it's definitely not, like, even if you rolled a resource, or you rolled a focus and made a resource, I still think it's a little rough to come out the gate with. It's not the worst play. I've done it, but I usually try to throw IQA back. Promotion first turn, I'm super happy with that. Jetpack, I usually look for DH17s, F11s, and jetpacks as my starting upgrades. I see Holdout Blaster as more of a trick card, more of a late game card, sort of like surprise, more dice kind of thing, but I really don't like starting with that. I actually throw Holdout Blasters back into the deck, which may surprise a lot of people. Commanding Presence, I don't want that early. Backup Muscle, it's really great to have Backup Muscle. Even if I draw Backup Muscle turn 1 though, I usually now don't play it until turn 2, but I love having it. I love having the option. Maybe I'll roll an extra resource turn 1 and play it, and I'm perfectly happy there. But interestingly enough, say I had Backup Muscle on F11, I would more likely play the F11 at the cost of not being able to play Backup Muscle on turn 1. I'm okay with that. So in case you're curious, like, where that would lie.
Right.
As far as the defensive options I'm looking for, the best defense is literally the best defense card to me. And flank is, stronger earlier as your guys are alive, so flanks are great. I try to look for Disarm in my starting hand and see what my opponent tries to play or sneak into play, or whatever. And obviously, you're playing against Blue Villain, you want to hit that holocron. Playing against Holdout Blasters and their own D11s, being able to pop those off and take away the value of the redeploy is really super satisfying. So I'm always happy and often look for Disarm in my opening hand. I throw Tactical Mastery back. I'd throw Arm to the Teeth, Leadership, Endless Ranks. I wouldn't keep those. They're the situational cards. That's why they're the one-ofs. I'm never disappointed when I see a defense card, but I'm also never disappointed for the most part, depending on the tempo of the game. One thing I really, really heavily stress is this is a deck that you reroll a lot with. But, obviously weigh the pros and cons and, like, what dies are you rerolling. But again, like, aside from promotion, like, every die that you put on the board, can hit for 1, can hit for 2, and a lot of them you don't have to pay for. So you have ways of, like, re-rolling dice into not having to pay for it, or you'll often, statistically, you'll roll a resource or a focus and be able to pay for stuff if you have to. But yeah, this is a very, very heavy reroll deck. Like I've had my opponents laugh at me. I discard my whole hand, but I'm probably gonna draw defense again. I'm gonna become really flush with upgrades. And honestly, it comes to a point. The sweet spot is getting 2 upgrades on Balatik. 3 is fantastic, obviously. But getting 2 on him and then using your resources to pay for shots or pay for defensive cards, 2 is usually enough to do a serious amount of hurt off of Balatik and get those kills and get those trigger his ability, which is, we're pretty far into this episode, but to remind everybody, when you defeat an opponent's character, Balatik readies. You can reroll all of his dice. You can fire again. And, again, with his ability to roll 1 range dice himself and focus, like he can start his own chains. He'll roll a 1 and a +2 sometimes, and I'm perfectly happy. And he even rolls shields. That's one cool thing that I've grown to love about Balatik, is even on his most unwanted roll, next to missing, obviously, rolling shields is great. It's great. Like, it keeps him alive. You can throw him on the Stormtrooper, who's just been diving in front of lightsabers and blaster shots for you the whole game. So it can keep him alive. It can get more life out of your Stormtrooper. Shields are fantastic. Like, if I roll the jetpack and it rolls on 2 shields, sometimes I'm happy with that and I won't re-roll it, and it just I'll just throw them on the Stormtrooper and, just get more mileage out of that. So that should cover pretty much every card. Go look for 1 to 2 upgrades. DH17s are the best. Defensive cards are fantastic. Never be upset when you see those. Hopefully, as you'll dig through the deck, you'll grab more upgrades and you can hit the sweet spot of 2 to 3 on Bala and 1 to 2 on Phasma, and then just use cards to reroll and kill.
So when people are playing this deck, currently the meta in a lot of stores that we've seen is very heavy on aggro. We haven't seen a lot of control, not to say that control's not doing well, and we haven't seen a lot of mill, but those are going to be the 3 most common decks. You're going to see a lot of aggro, a lot of control, a lot of mill, or like janky stuff. So can you go into detail on how this deck fights against those 3 archetypes that you're going to see most commonplace if you were to go to a tournament scene?
Sure. So I'm sure a lot of questions running through players' heads are like, all right, well, what have you played against? And I can say, I've played against Vader Raider. I redrew aggressively to get the disarms. So the times that I've played against Vader Raider and he's dropped Holocron, I've let him play it, I've let him rolled out, and I've disarmed it. And then now they've lost a lot of action economy, and that has put me pretty far ahead. One thing I have to point out, all decks are gonna have god rolls. I have lost. I've had games where I didn't draw a defensive card. I've had games where I didn't draw an upgrade. Like, I played against 4 Trooper, and I never got an upgrade on Balatik, and I killed 4 Troopers that game. He endless ranked, and I just ran out of gas. And it was so absurd that by the time that I could finally get something on him, that's a game where I drew both commanding presences and both promotions, but I never got a gun. I never got a jetpack on. Well, that's a lie. I got a jetpack on him, but I did get disarmed. Well, whatever. Anyway, yeah, I just never got him set up. So even though I got infinite rerolls, he got killed, and I wasn't able to stem the tide. It's hard to say, like, is this the killer deck? I think it's fairly strong. It has a lot of answers for the meta against Vader Raider. You have the disarm. You have the best defense. If Vader rolls high damage, instead of taking 6, instead of taking 5, even instead of taking 4, just pull those dice off, pull away the force throws using your defensive cards. Try to disarm Vader with your jetpacks, or not disarm, but definitely do that. But I mean, like, using the special of the jetpack, it hits Vader really hard. It frustrates him a lot. And again, you hit very hard very quickly. Sometimes they'll roll high and Bala will explode, but I would definitely try to get your defensive cards early and just try to use your natural die, and then cheat 1 or 2 little upgrades in there as the battle goes on. I've played against Control. Control comes in like 2 interesting, I'll say, flavors. There's heavy controls where it's 2 character, like Dooku Jabba, and again, they'll hit my hand, they'll hit my deck, they'll make me discard. But I'm already happy discarding. I'm already chewing through my deck. If you're playing against control, make every turn count, because they can't afford the damage race that you're bringing. So, imagine that you're going to lose your cards anyway, because if their deck does what it wants to, it's just going to take away your hand. Either play cards early or just write it off as a discard and just make your rolls better. And just go all in and make every turn count, and you'll usually be able to pop off Jabba before he gets the Crime Lord, or if they do get the Crime Lord out, always try to have something in your hand ready for a ace in the hole Crime Lord. Granted, if they're playing well, they're gonna knock out all your cards in your hand, which makes it extra tough. But I often play if I can't use a card this turn, re-roll. So I just play super aggressively in that scenario. So I'm already discarding. You just have to remember what you're trying to do and what you're up against. Control decks aren't likely to kill your guys. So, you can roll out your Stormtrooper faster and not wait to pick dice away. But sometimes, even in these control decks, the dice that they're using have attack sides, and sometimes you can pull away that on the hunt or whatever, again, using Stormtrooper, or they were going to turn Dooku's die into his discard side, but he rolled the one attack. Just pull that off. There's neat little ins you can use to disrupt, and again, you can, if you pull out the right stuff, you can disarm the thermal detonator before it goes off, or you can always remove the thermal detonator die if you play it right. There are times when their deck's going to do what they're trying to do, but a lot of times this deck has so much natural damage, it has so much health. They can Crime Lord Balatik, and if you've equipped him with the right upgrades, they'll all redeploy to Phasma, and then she just turns into a house. So again, you have a lot of health, you have a lot to chew through. You deal a ton of damage just right from the get-go. You have focus. You can make money as you need it. Against straight aggro, again, you can pick apart bad rolls, you can redirect the damage using best defense and guardians, so they have a very hard time all-inning whatever target they want. They usually want Bala. Through enough proper mitigation, you can either kill their small guys, or against Django Veers, hit the one that's got the better stuff on it and try to knock him out, or disarm. That deck, I've gone up against it a few times. A couple people in my play group really like that deck, and it's it can be stressful. Sometimes they're just as equally capable of rolling 8 damage. But one advantage you have is they don't have focus, so when they roll bad, and then they have to discard, just to try and get the damage numbers to line up. But when you reroll, you have that small chance of getting the focus, which will make whatever you roll into something. What you lose slightly in damage, you make up for in consistency, which is something that, again, when other aggro decks try to go all in, sometimes the rolls don't come to them as quickly. Again, god rolls and blowouts. There's no advice against that. It doesn't matter what deck you play, those are gonna defeat you. So I will admit, 2 popular decks that I have not seen much about. I have not played a lot of Rey Han, and I have not played much against Qui-Gon. And some people that I've talked to have said, what does your deck do against that? Those seem really good against your deck. People said, you don't have a lot of shields. Or, excuse me, ways of dealing with shields. I have the IQA. I want to try playing against it. I feel like I can kill, the smaller targets, unless Qui-Gon, really, really gets online. I feel as though I can either hit him enough that, he has to give him shields without the trigger, or I can kill his little helpers, whoever he's using, fairly quickly. And I feel like I just deal enough damage, shields or not, I'm going to get through. But I can't say that, definitively. And then Rey Han, to me, is a very interesting deck. I do think it's strong, and I think it's strong because when it does its shenanigans and when it's hot, there's nothing you can do against it. But I do think that, Rey's die are terrible. Han's die only has 2 damage sides. He doesn't have a focus. Neither of them have focus. I mean, you can throw Jedi robes in there, but usually you throw in Jedi robes to get the shields, and then you immediately replace it with something else. So that deck doesn't tend to have focus. It can totally reroll. I get it. Like, when that deck is good, it's good. But I actually think that deck has consistency problems in exchange for explosivity and for shenanigans. I'm not saying the deck's bad. I'm not saying my deck trumps it, but I feel like my deck offers consistency and it has defensive options available to it to disrupt, playing against Han. The way I like to play against Han personally is to just ignore him. I realize he's got, potential to hit hard. But again, to me, I look at it and I see 2 damage sides. If he rolls disrupt, I can just spend my money. Like, that's very, very easy to do. The rest of his sides are fine. He makes money. Sure, I don't care. I actually usually just let him get 3 shields, and then unless I'm getting riposted, he's not getting benefits from that anymore. And even though I would usually advocate going for the heavy first, just rip apart Rey. She's what's enabling Han to be silly. If they, dumped like some holdout blasters or a lightsaber on her that's going to go to Han, that's fine. I mean, maybe try to disarm it. If you take out Rey, Han loses a lot of his combo potential, and eventually those shields are just going to fall off. The only thing you have to be nervous about is riposte. But if they riposte, hit Han, like, get those free shots in. This isn't from personal experience, but this is just like the strategies that I think about. The main focal points of the stack are, if you outnumber them, flank's great. If you're equal numbers, hit their weakest, like chew out their weakest guy quickly and get Bala going. You have an incredible defensive suite. Every weapon hits hard, so don't be afraid to discard to hit hard, and don't get too hung up trying to put all the upgrades you can on every character. I swear, like, one on Phasma, and like, promotion's funny. Like, I love promotion, and I think you should always play it. I don't consider that an upgrade. I almost consider promotion like sort of giving Phasma her second die. So when I say like only give one upgrade to Phasma to worry about, I don't mean promotion. If you have promotion, play promotion. But just focus on getting 1 to 2 on Bala. Give Phasma something to do. I almost never upgrade the Stormtrooper. He's just there to take hits and cry about it and die. But now he's there to be resurrected as well. But you have the defense, you have the offense. I feel like a fair amount of this deck, kind of lies on the player now and knowing the matchups and knowing what they're seeing. But this deck, to me, has a ton of health, has a ton of mitigation, has a ton of damage. It is really cheap, both to play and to make. It has the best upgrades. It has, backup muscle, events for days that either make you more aggressive or using tactical mastery. Oh yeah, ways of like using tactical mastery. You can deal just enough damage and deal damage off of your backup muscle. Like, it lets you cheat in an extra backup muscle damage, which is sometimes relevant. You can attack with everything on Bala and then arm to the teeth. I've done that before. Not even using tactical mastery, a combo that's fun, is play holdout blaster and then throw all your stuff. And I just like the visual of just pulling a gun out of your jacket and immediately throwing it at their head, not even firing. Yeah, tactical just lets you abuse your you can use it as a mini all-in. You can use it to play and resolve, like, I've used it to like play an extra backup muscle and dealt 1 damage, and then that would put them at 1. And then when they roll out, if they wanted to roll out, I had the other backup muscle ready. Without doing the tactical mastery, they could have resolved first. Now they can't. Tactical just has like 1,000,001 uses, and the better you are at understanding your deck and the situation and your options, the more scary things you can do with it. Tactical lets you roll a guy out and then use the defense card, so you can like get your guy in place and use removal on like force throw or whatever. So it just lets you like cheat the order that your opponent's not even paying much attention to. And actually, this was more when I used Armory. And if you want to use Armory, one thing to consider is you can tactical into resolving like your dice into taking the battlefield. And if you take the battlefield with Armory and you get the cost reduction, you can basically assume that paid for the tactical. I made that play a few times, being able to like do my last resolve and then claim the battlefield and like refund the one I played for tactical when I knew that my opponent was probably going to try and snipe me on the battlefield on their next opportunity. So again, 1,000,001 uses. I love that card.
Great. All right, so as we wrap this show up, just a really fun question. What's your favorite card in the deck and why?
This is going to be a really dumb answer, but like this is part of why I like this deck is I'm playing my favorite cards. Like I get to abuse Jetpack. I get to use IQA. A lot of people are meh on IQA because it costs 3. I think that card is just, again, a perfect marriage of lightsaber and Jetpack, and it does all the things. This has a lot of uses for tactical, as I just explained. I really like Arm to the Teeth because it's fun. I'm glad that I thought Bala was really interesting from the get-go. And actually, you know what? Screw it. I really like Captain Phasma. She's one of my favorite cards because there's more to synergize with ranged. Turns out, as much as I love yellow, I love red too. She has focus, and I found a deck that I can use literally every advantage she brings to the table, and I get to run a trooper, and I get 4 dice, and I get all her health. Yeah, I love Phasma, and I'm glad that earlier when I was using her elite style, I didn't get a trooper, and everyone said, like, it's really weird that you use her, and you don't get the Guardian bonus. Well, now I do, and I couldn't be happier, and it's awesome.
All right, so as we wrap up the show, we want to make a couple announcements about giveaways that we're doing. So currently we are doing a build a deck, email it to us, and we're going to pick our favorite deck, and we're going to send you a copy of Rey and Kylo Ren Gen Con promos that Fantasy Flight was so kind to give us earlier this year. So all you have to do is come up with a deck list, come up with a name, give us a brief strategy, what's the point of the deck, what's it supposed to do. Email us at knightsofrenpodcast@gmail.com. You have 1 week left. We're going to go through all of the listings, and then we're going to pick our favorite one. We'll announce it, and then you're going to win yourself some free Gen Con promos.
And the other thing we're doing, guys, is I haven't actually been able to come up with a name for this deck. I've tried a lot of things, nothing sticks. Everyone suggested Tell It to Kanjiklub, but I don't know. That's not a deck name. So I want something fun. I want something Star Wars-y. I want something appropriate. So, keep it clean, guys. But if you can make it fun and funny or, cool, throw it up on the comment section of this episode on our Facebook. Make sure it's our listing. We tend to post this, on all the other fan pages and stuff, but only submissions on the Knights of Ren Facebook page will count. Give it the name, and we'll choose one. We'll send you out a Knights of Ren sticker and an Arabesh Ray card, and I'll be eternally grateful because I really love this deck, but it baffles me that I can't come up with something cool for it. So I'm putting it on you guys.
And we'll pick a winner in a week, which will be right around Christmas, so get those names in as soon as you can. And then we also have some special guest announcements wanting to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays.
This is Tiny Grimes from the Smuggler's Den, and I want to wish all of you out there in Star Wars Destiny Land a Happy Holidays, and I hope that Santa brings you a big pile of packs and they're full of Darth Vaders.
Hey everybody, this is D-House from the Jedi Trials podcast, wanting to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and may the dice be with you.
Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays from the Jedi Trials.
Hello everyone, this is Jason.
And this is Amanda.
From the Chance Cube. And on behalf of the entire Chance Cube family, we are wishing you,
your friends and family, and the entire Star Wars Destiny community
a very Merry Christmas.
And a very happy holiday season.
Hey everybody, this is Evan of the JodoCast, and on behalf of myself, Leo, and Joe, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas, a happy holiday season, and we hope all your Star Wars Destiny dreams come true.
Merry Christmas, happy holidays to everyone listening to the Knights of Ren.
And we here at the Knights of Ren would like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. Thank you so much for listening to our show. We hope you guys have a great week. Enjoy wrapping, unwrapping gifts, drinking your hot cocoa, watching Christmas movies. Jay, thank you so much for being here with me. And we want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and may the Force be with you.
Artu, the Quaver converter isn't complete yet. It isn't finished. Lock in your circuits again quickly.